7 confusing, maybe even bewildering wide receiver rankings happening in your home leagues right now. Today, we are pulling from consensus ADPs in your redraft leagues from Yahoo, from ESPN, from CBS, packaging them all together and comparing them to our own rankings with the goal, Hayden, of us to convince the people that we are smarter than these platforms.
Yeah, we have to update our rankings like almost every single day at this point. Sometimes those default rankings feel a little bit stale, not reacting to the news, or maybe those rankings just don't know enough ball. So this is our attempt at it.
As always, you guys know later on this month, we'll do cheat code videos where we'll literally talk through entire drafts on each of those platforms plus Sleeper. As always, let us know in the comments down below which platforms you want us to hit on. But yeah, today we'll do, I think, 5 that we separate ourselves that we're much higher on, and 2 that we can't believe that these players are being drafted so early on in these drafts. So it's a good split here down the middle. Okay, let's kick things off. Home leagues just don't take rookies early enough. And the first one up is Tetairoa McMillan, the Carolina Panthers. He is both of our wide receiver 22 and a home league composite ADP of wide receiver 29.
So as a prospect, he was my 5th overall player in the NFL draft, including defensive players, average 108 and then 110 yards per game as a true sophomore and junior, early declare, with size, with draft capital, without a bunch of target competition, in ascending offense. And I think that stylistically, Tetairoa McMillan and Bryce Young are actually a good pairing because Bryce Young gets the ball out quickly and down the field to the perimeter, like throws these huge cover 2 hole shots. And that's where Tetairoa McMillan, back shoulder, comped like T. Higgins, Alshon Jeffrey, those type of guys. And I'm just looking at it. Xavier Legette, Thielen, Renfro, Coker. These aren't X receivers. He's going to be a full-time starter from week 1. If he's as good as I thought he was as a college prospect, he's going to start the season as like a wide receiver 3 with room to run as a wide receiver 2 if the Panthers offense can't take that next step.
So often when you look at T-Mac, he is viewed through this lens of being a contested catch acrobatic guy. I think it's actually underappreciated how good he is after the catch too. And he exploded in that department during his final year at Arizona. I mean, it jumped from 13 missed tackles in 2023 that he forced up to 29 this past year. If you just go and look at the Panthers creating after the catch and forcing missed tackles, they were easily the worst in the NFL. Xavier Legette topped this wide receiver grouping last year with 8. Deontay Johnson, who played half the year with this team, had 6. Then Jalen Coker had 4. And in fact, if you look at of the 83 wide receivers in the NFL last season with 50 plus targets, the Panthers ranked 60th, 78th, and 83rd in yards after the catch per reception. That's just not good enough. So not only can Tetairoa McMillan be absolutely dominant at going up and getting it with these acrobatic catches, he can also shock defenders when turning the corner and running upfield. Plus, this Panthers team was already really good in the red zone this past year. They were 8th in red zone touchdown success rate. You would like to think that they get more opportunities to do that more often this year. And I think T-Mac's going to be a go-to player for them in the short red too.
And I think you just look at the history of rookie wide receivers. Like last year in a video just like this, we were shouting out Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Lad McConkey. So this is just a history of, even if they're not the best player in September, down the stretch, you're going to want them. So you can draft them as your wide receiver 4 at times. Definitely you can get him as a wide receiver 3. I think by the end of the season, he should be a consensus wide receiver 2.
Our buddy Ron Stewart did some great math on this. He pointed out that since 2019, 14 rookie wide receivers have posted 16 plus points per game from week 9 and on. So we have caught up to this, how rookie wide receivers define the second half of NFL seasons, I should say. These platforms and these drafters have not at this point, and this is the perfect time to take advantage of that. We, in every single episode, have discussed Emeka Egbuka's name. He would be another one we could add to this list. But instead, Hayden, let's pivot on over to another first-round wide receiver in Matthew Golden. He's my wide receiver 40. He's your wide receiver 38. Yet, on these combined platforms, he's going as wide receiver 46.
Yeah, once again, this is a great prospect in the draft. He was my 14th overall player. Some upside comps like Steph Diggs, Will Fuller. Doesn't have the perfect size, but 4.29 40, has great body control, great hands. He averaged 17 yards per reception at Texas. They would use him on like these cheat motions at Texas, and that's something that LaFleur does utilize 100%. Here. But more importantly, he just has like go ball ability. He can stop and turn on a dime. There's a little bit of Tank Dell to his game. And the big thing with Matthew Golden is it's a perfect fit for how LaFleur uses his wide receivers, how Jordan Love's aggressiveness and downfield throwing ability fits with Matthew Golden's skill set. And most importantly, I think from family night, which is basically their scrimmage early in August, he was out there as the number one wide receiver in routes. Like sometimes like these teams like take their time with their rookie wide receivers. Not Matthew Golden, not in Green Bay right now. So if the Packers do have this like borderline top 5 offense, which I do think they could reach that potential, I do think Matthew Golden's the one to benefit. So I would draft Matthew Golden ahead of Jayden Reed straight up. And I do think that he could be somebody that by the end of the season, he was like one of the guys you absolutely needed regardless of position.
I think people see his 4.29 speed and then went back and watched him and thought he was going to run vertical and go routes all day long. But in reality, those were just, 26% of his targets on 20 plus yard downfield routes, which ranked 45th in last year's draft class. But what he does do great and where he does look most explosive is, like you said, when he's given these free releases on those motions, on the stacked formations, all of it. It is just amazing to see when he has just a little bit of grass to eat up and chew up, then he always has, these defensive backs on their heels. And as you pointed out, LaFleur absolutely loved to do that. Now, that might take away from Dontavian Wicks, who did a little bit of that, Jayden Reed, who did a lot of that previously, but there is a reason why we have called in other years this Packers wide receiver room talented, yet they finally spent a first-round pick on one guy that they think is the most talented, because as the season went along, the defense and the coverage and the space got more and more and more condensed. So it's not like I was one of these people that thought Matthew Golden was the wide receiver one in this past draft class, but I can definitely appreciate him in this group. And he is just severely undervalued, especially on Yahoo right now. He's being selected as like the 126th overall player. It's nuts.
Yeah, I think like that's where you just like reach on ADP, like make sure you get him. Like if he's available in the 90s, in the 100s, you really do need to get this guy. Jordan Love is like talking him up in interviews. Same thing with LaFleur. So everyone that he comes in contact with, they do seem to love. Early declare, young. And I think the big difference, like why Jayden Reed doesn't play on the outside, he's just smaller. It's not that Matthew Golden's some big guy, but this is a team that uses thresholds. And I think that Jayden Reed is just not big enough to play on the outside. Like he like basically never plays on the perimeter. That was the same thing that happened at family night. So Jayden Reed's like the biggest competition for him in terms of just like potential upside. But if they're only going to use him in a limited capacity, that's the runway that Matthew Golden needed to be potentially like finish the season as like a wide receiver too.
I would love to see Jayden Reed play more on the outside. They just haven't proven that they're going to do that for us. So we need to listen to what these teams are telling us through the snap counts. And yes, Jayden Reed is going 2 spots ahead purely as a wide receiver over Matthew Golden. And this is more of a story of his career so far, but he transferred from Houston to Texas. And I first watched Matthew Golden's stuff at the University of Houston and didn't love it. Like there were some drops, catch consistency. It just wasn't there. And then he took a massive leap at Texas, and especially the final 4-5 games of his career. And look, progression is not linear, but if he continues to take steps moving forward, and he took a step from what he just did at Texas, then yeah, we could easily have a really, really fun and impactful rookie wide receiver that, again, if you're drafting on just Yahoo specifically, take him 2 rounds ahead of where he's going right now. Yeah, just make sure you exit with it for sure.
Yep. I'm drafting him ahead of ADP on Underdog, where everyone loves the rookies. I don't care.
And look, we could do this again about Emeka Egbuka. He's the wide receiver 47 when you package NFL and Yahoo and CBS and ESPN all together. So at least those guys exit with 1 or 2. And shit, Hayden, I'll throw in Travis Hunter's name. He's being selected as wide receiver 32 on these platforms as well. We just spend every single episode talking up 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these guys. But again, if this is the only video you have watched of us so far, we want to highlight in pen, maybe even, on a screen board, draft rookie wide receivers in your home leagues because they define fantasy football in the second half of the season.
Jaden Higgins is the other one. I think there's about 5 rookie wide receivers. Those are the 5.
All right. Again, if this is the first time you have tuned into this channel, you need to hit that subscribe button. Our entire goal is to help you win your fantasy leagues. And we do that by posting, during preseason, at least 4 videos. And most importantly, when these preseason games do happen, then we go back and review every single snap to give you the important information, the usage trends, and to change our rankings on top of it. So hit that subscribe button and leave a thumbs up. It is totally free to all of you. Okay, we go from the rookies to the old man. Stefon Diggs, both of our wide receiver 35. He's being selected as wide receiver 41 in your redraft leagues. Why the difference?
He's just ready to go, man. Like I know that he's old. I know he's coming off a torn ACL. He's looked great since he's coming off that boat riding high off his Memorial Day weekend. And it's just time to go. There's not that much competition in New England. Everyone's expecting the Drake May kind of breakout appeal for this season. And last year, ESPN has an open score. He was the wide receiver 7 in that. He still had 1.8 yards per route run in his 8 games with the Texans, despite competing with targets against Nico Collins, who's one of the best receivers in the game. Tank Dell was active for a big part of that. When I went back and watched his tape, he still has fantastic hands. He's still a great route runner. He's not going to be burning people down the field like he was in Minnesota and at times in Buffalo. He's going to be more in that intermediate and underneath part of the game. But that's how you get a bunch of volume in an offense that does not have established players over there. So over the last 2 seasons, he's been the wide receiver 17.5 PPR points per game. I think that's probably about the upside. But if I'm getting like a wide receiver 3 this late into the draft, I feel pretty good about that. I think like these names that we're talking about, this is why I like to go elite quarterback early on, because I feel comfortable I can kind of piece together my wide receiver 3 just in this type of range.
I mean, he is the perfect complement to one of these rookie wide receivers that we just discussed too. Some early season points from a dude that was producing at a high level early last season. I mean, he turned into CJ Stroud's go-to player in the red zone in just a short time on the field. He had 5 red zone targets and scored 3 touchdowns off of this. You know, he was winning in the slot. He was winning out wide. He could line up in both spots for the New England Patriots. On top of it, we have seen Josh McDaniels use those inside to outside players to high productive profiles in the past. And I don't know if enough is being discussed about the Patriots schedule as much as we like to prop up the 49ers schedule. And we will hear in a little bit. I mean, the schedule is quite nice. You get the Las Vegas Raiders, the Miami Dolphins, and their cornerback group, then the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then the Carolina Panthers in the opening 4 games. So this is a nice early season stretch for a guy that, sure, finishes the season last year with a major knee injury, but from like the first day of practice was on the field and was the primary pass catcher for Drake May, who you and I think can make a massive leap in 2025.
I'm actually pretty surprised because he has so much name recognition. I thought he would be somebody that like would be ranked as like a wide receiver 2-3 in fantasy, but just like simply not the case right now. So I think this is a lot of just ACL risk. But man, like I watched him outrun all of their youngsters like the week after Memorial Day in practice, and I was like, all right, well, he's ready to go.
I'm going to speak from personal experience with this ad read because we're talking about FitBod. Look, whenever you move to a new house or a new city, one of the first things that you do is look up gyms or workout classes in your area. For me, I go to one of those boot camps. It's the only male in the class. That is me, surrounded by 35, 40-year-old women, and they just totally kick my butt. I can't keep up. They are literally running circles around me, and I am nearly dead, lying on the floor, asking for water and grasping for air. So what I need to do is get a personalized workout tailored to me, and that's exactly where FitBod comes in. Again, personalized workout routine based on your goals, fitness levels, and available equipment. Workouts adapt to your growth personally. So each workout is challenging enough to push you to make progress. And you can get rid of that like little fat section on the bottom right. Yeah, the love handles. Those are the last things to go. FitBod can help you get rid of those. So get in shape this summer with FitBod. Join FitBod today to get your personalized workout plan. Get 25% off your subscription or try the app for free for 7 days at fitbod.me/the show. That is FITBOD.me/the show. All right, let's cover all of our bases here. It's time for a second-year wide receiver. And I guess this is really just mine because Ricky Pearsall of the San Francisco 49ers is my wide receiver 37. He's your wide receiver 42. And I think if you combine all these platforms, they are slightly different, but he's also their wide receiver 42. So I know you like Ricky Pearsall a lot. There's a lot of reasons why we were advocating to just blindly draft a whole bunch of San Francisco 49ers this year. But I'll send this to you first so I don't take up a monologue. Why do you think that people should be targeting Ricky Pearsall ahead of ADP here?
Well, I think you should just be targeting the 49ers in general, 3rd most projected points against the easiest schedule in the league. I think that Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, it's very similar players to discuss here. I have Juwan Jennings ranked fairly ahead, but really it's just like, hey, this is Kyle Shanahan. Brock Purdy looks much better. Trent Williams is back. Christian McCaffrey is back. That just means more first downs. Debo and Ayuk out of there / injured. So one of these two guys is going to become a focal point, at least early on in the season. But I do think there's enough potential between the both of them. When I went back and watched Ricky Pearsall, he needs to get a lot better against zone coverage. He, I think, had a couple of interceptions that were on him. But against man coverage, he was like really like out routing some players, especially in the last couple of games there. So I'm expecting his zone to get better as he plays more NFL football. Remember, he did not have a normal training camp from the last year from the freaking gunshot. So I feel like the zone's going to get better. And I already watched clips of him against man coverage getting open. So I think there's a lot of runway for either Juwan Jennings or Ricky Pearsall. And you were on the Ricky Pearsall side of that.
He led the 49ers in yards per route run against man coverage last year. We had seen splits previously with the Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel days of if a team focused on man coverage, we know that was going to be leaning more towards a Brandon Ayuk game. Zone coverage, they got the ball in Deebo Samuel's hands and let him rumble. This one's really simple to me. I mean, this is a first-round pick in year 2 who is in a Kyle Shanahan offense and is in the starting lineup. What is there not to love, especially on top of it when you consider this is the easiest schedule in the NFL? Everything went wrong last year. This offense was still 14th in points scored. I'd put them closer to top 5, top 6 projected this year. I don't know why Ricky Pearsall is not considered the top wide receiver on this 49ers team. I love Juwan Jennings as well, but where we're at right now in training camp, Ricky Pearsall is on the field participating. This team runs 11 personnel, but a ton of 12 and 21 personnel on top of it too. And we already saw down the stretch wide receiver 9, 8, and 14 overall weeks from him. And I'm just expecting, again, a massive jump in his performance as an every down player. And I think he's going to be the beneficiary of those motions, the flies, all that stuff, of the easy releases, because they were still giving that to Deebo Samuel at times last year.
Yeah, I think all those are completely valid points. Juwan Jennings is a calf injury. It's hard to tell if his calf is actually injured or if he's still just trying to hold in with this contract dispute. So that's one thing to keep your eye out on this channel. We'll make sure to update you guys on Juwan Jennings.
Ricky Pearsall right now is the 112th pick on ESPN draft boards at this moment. So load up while you can. Okay, there's one more name that we are much higher on. I wouldn't say much, just a little bit, but it's a notable little bit, Hayden. Darnell Mooney, he basically combines as our wide receiver 47, and he's being drafted out there as wide receiver 50. What are the people missing?
I think there's a chance that he's going to get drafted after that ADP because there might be a little Q tag or an out tag in your draft lobby, and everyone's scared with that. He has a shoulder injury right now. We're unsure if he's going to play week 1. You're also not drafting him to put in your starting lineup. He goes late enough where you're drafting him for your bench. And last year he was a fantasy starter. And if you just look at what he did in Atlanta, he was like actually playing on the outside, getting open against man coverage, doing things that we did not necessarily see in Chicago. I thought he was like one of the players that like really broke out on film last year. He was the 71st overall player this past season. And what's good about the Michael Penix offense is there's going to be tons of pace just stemming from the offensive coordinator. Michael Penix doesn't take a lot of sacks. He never scrambles. So every single time they call a pass, the ball is actually being thrown, and it's still a bad defense. So I think there's going to be a lot of play volume for Darnell Mooney. He was very good. The coaching staff really likes him. They said they want to lean on him even more and see where that goes. That came from their wide receiver coach. So, man, I just thought he was a much better football player last year, and nothing's really changed. They're going to pass the ball a ton.
The red Q tag is a great shout out. He's dealing with a shoulder injury right now. He's missed a couple weeks, and he'll miss the rest of preseason. But this dude was 8 yards short of 1,000 yards receiving last year. Rich Rebar pointed out that he had a higher yards per route run than Courtland Sutton, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and Jordan Addison. Pretty notable, especially when you consider that this offense is going to be expanded now that Michael Penix is a member of the passing team and the quarterback that's unleashing the footballs, instead of broken Kirk Cousins that we got for a number of games towards the middle of the season. I'm not saying that Darnell Mooney is solely a vertical shot player. He really did expand his game this past season. And this is also a team that leads the NFL in 11 personnel usage. So he is going to be on the field when healthy. I think he is going to be healthy early on. And if he continues to drop and drop and drop, if you're out on Darnell Mooney, heck, you better freaking love someone like Ray McLeod later on.
Yeah, or don't you say Kyle Pitts, but
nope, I will not utter those names.
Yeah. I mean, these like 5-6 names in this like very same range. And that's the reason why go with elite quarterback. I think go with a couple of stud running backs earlier on, because I think that you can trust yourself or trust the channel to find some wide receivers. Some of these guys have a chance to be like a top 15 fantasy wide receiver, like maybe Matthew Golden or T-Mac does. The rest of this group, I do think you can piece together wide receiver 3 production at various points of the season.
Okay, before we get to the wide receivers that we are drafting later than the consensus at this moment, let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers, because the man is back. Keenan Allen signed a 1-year deal, incentive laden, up to around like $8.25 million. Hayden, we just did our rounds 1 and 2 and 3 show just a few days ago. Ladd McConkey is both of our wide receiver 11. I've already gotten questions if the Keenan Allen signing is going to impact Ladd McConkey. My quick answer is no. Do you have a long answer?
I do have a long answer. I moved Ladd McConkey down like a couple spots, but like I put
Really?
I put like Jonathan Taylor ahead of him now. Like we're talking about superstars here. I still think that you should draft him at the very latest in the early part of round 3. And I think I've looked at some of the redraft ADPs, and that's kind of where he goes. And I would be wheels up on Ladd McConkey in that range. Keenan Allen, I do think it's going to matter. I think that he's going to be the second wide receiver for the Chargers. He's going to just go right in front of Quentin Johnson and Trey Harris and the rest of these guys. The coaching staff has some familiarity, or not, Justin Herbert has some familiarity. The whole league has some familiarity with Keenan Allen. 2.36 yards per route run with Justin Herbert in 2023. That dropped a full yard per route last year on the Bears. That was a complete disaster season all around. I went back and just like looked at productive wide receivers in their 30s, like so age 30, age 31, age 32. And in those seasons, like Keenan Allen's like the wide receiver 17 since 1980 in those 3 seasons. The following year, the age 33 season, these productive players are still usually pretty damn productive. Adam Thielen comes to mind, Larry Fitzgerald, like a bunch of these guys still have some very fantasy friendly seasons out there. So this would require a break, like a bounce back season from Keenan Allen. But I think you should look at like Caleb Williams last year versus what Justin Herbert is. I'm expecting a little bit of a bounce back season. So I'm taking him seriously. He's in like my wide receiver 50s range. I think there's a chance he could be like a wide receiver 3 in PPR. But yeah, I just thought there was a little bit more production from the age 33 guys than I was expecting after looking at some of the numbers.
I think you're more nervous than I am. And just to clarify, to make sure I heard you correctly, you meant the latter part of round 2, not the latter part of round 3 for Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, I think he's going to be late round 2, early round 3, and that's where I would draft him.
Yeah, because I see him as 22 overall right now when you combine everything together. To me, this impacts more the other guys, like the ones that you're still waiting on Quentin Johnson to be like a complete player, or Trey Harris coming in as a rookie impact. Now both of those roles are very different than what Keenan Allen brings to the table. Like the last time we saw Keenan Allen, it was with Kellen Moore, I believe, with the Chargers, and they were just peppering him with slot targets after slot targets after slot targets. Then he goes to the Chicago Bears with Shane Waldron, and Shane asked him to be like their number 1 outside wide receiver, and then in 2 wide receiver sets, and build the passing attack around this dude that has on a 1-year contract, and it just didn't work at all. I don't know. I'm not that into the Keenan Allen experience in 2025. I'm perfectly fine with keeping Ladd McConkey exactly where I had him, because I think Ladd McConkey is one of the best wide receiver talents in the NFL based on what he showed us last year. So I'm still drafting him in the same exact area. I just think that this adds a veteran presence to what was a very young room after losing Mike Williams, because it really was Ladd, QJ, Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, and like Darius Davis. And that's it. So all these teams have so much money still, because the cap is so high, that you can fling some $8 million ish that maybe is actually $5 million around. And we'll see. I mean, is he going to make some plays? For sure. But it could also be, hey, we're in 3 wide receiver sets. Let's get Keenan Allen out there and be able to move, based on matchups, Ladd McConkey inside and outside.
I think he's going to be out there in 2 wide receiver sets. So,
okay.
I think they're just going to kind of figure out Ladd can play inside and outside. Keenan's played inside and outside. We've also seen the formations where the wide receivers are lining up. We've talked about this. It's just closer to the quarterback instead of like being split out. So even in like, it's technically 2 wide receiver sets and you are on the outside, but if you have like 2-way goes because you're closer to where the tight ends typically line up, it's still kind of slot-ish type of stuff. And that's where the league's kind of been trending. I can see that's one avenue for the Chargers. But yeah, Ladd McConkey is in his own tier. He's one of like the top 10 NFL wide receivers in the game. Keenan Allen's no longer that, but the level of competition in this offense is so minuscule, and Justin Herbert's so damn good. There's so much chemistry and history with Keenan Allen. It would not surprise me if we're doing week one waivers and Keenan Allen, yep, full-time player, 8 targets. He's going to be in the flex consideration, full PPR.
You're much more optimistic than me, but that's why we do the show, so we can disagree. Okay. Speaking of disagreeing, let's jump to the end and start with Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Okay. He's both of our wide receiver 18s. I'm pretty stunned to look up and see in these redraft home league ADPs that he's wide receiver 14. Why do you think that we are lower than the public is drafting him at this point?
Well, I think you're taking last year's like super pass heavy Seahawks offense and then looking at those numbers, imagining, hey, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are no longer there. And then this is the season where JSN can go crazy. I just think that this offense is going to look totally different because Clint Kubiak is super balanced, super running back focused, which is why we love Kenneth Walker. Sam Darnold is more of a boom bust passer compared to Geno Smith, who can kind of do everything. And I think you're going to see a lot of play action, deep shots. JSN, I think, can do that a little bit, but he's by no means a speed demon. Same thing with Cooper Kupp. So I think it's just going to be a pretty conservative offense in general. So he has to be really good to kind of pay off this price tag. I think the big reason why we're lower on him is not even just in the wide receiver rankings, just like JSN gets priced by some awesome quarterbacks, some awesome running backs. So this is just kind of a tier of wide receivers that I'm typically nervous about. And I'd rather go to those positions and then figure out my wide receivers with some of the guys we named previously.
I will zoom in strictly to the wide receiver rankings. And it really comes down to these platforms have JSN going ahead of Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, and for me, Rashee Rice. And I have those guys ranked ahead of JSN at this point. And I mean, it was so cool to watch the second half of last season. I mean, JSN and he went nuclear. He was top 10 in both yards and receptions, 5 top 15 weeks in a 7-game span. I do believe, though, that Mike McDonald, one of the reasons why he fired Ryan Grubb is that he wants to run the football a lot more. Yes. They were 6th in pass attempts per game last year. The Seattle Seahawks were. I don't think Mike McDonald wants that to happen again. He'd probably much rather than be 16th or 20th in that department. This is why we talk endlessly about Kenneth Walker III on this channel. And it goes interesting to what you just talked about with Keenan Allen, where, look, JSN has only run 58 routes with 1 or 2 wide receivers on the field in his NFL career so far. That's not me saying that, in 2 wide receiver sets, he's going to be taken off. No, but the spacing is quite different in a Clint Kubiak offense when everything is much more condensed to the formation versus what we have known from Ryan Grubb at the University of Washington and what Ryan Grubb did in Seattle last year, where it's really spread everything out. And this, again, spacing, the dynamics are just going to be slightly different. So, look, I think JSN is still awesome. I'm still very willing to take him. I just like some of these other wide receivers ahead of where people are taking him at this moment.
Yeah, I would take him in the 4th round, no question about it. But I think he'll most likely be gone before that.
Our biggest difference is DJ Moore with Chicago Bears. Home leagues are drafting him as wide receiver 21 at this point. He is your wide receiver 31, and he is my wide receiver 34. Why the difference?
I just think that we're predicting Rome Odunze to take a step forward here, and we really like what Colston Loveland's going to bring to the table. And I think that Ben Johnson's going to look at what he has with all these guys. And I think that DJ Moore is going to get more into like a Deebo Samuel-esque role where they're not going to be like making the true drop back game run through DJ Moore like we've seen previously. And he's going to be like the motion guy, get him some touches, pitch the ball out to him, which will be fun. But I think that like when there's like in the normal drop back game, it's going to be largely Jerome Odunze and Colston Loveland. And I think that both these guys have potential to kind of ball out. There's also the potential that this offense is very complicated and Caleb Williams isn't ready to do this right away either. And that all of these guys that I just mentioned don't quite live up to the potential as it did last year. So I think that DJ Moore is a little bit overrated in general. And I think they're going to use him how they should be using him, which is in this kind of manufactured touch role. I don't draft like more manufactured touch players that high unless they're attached to, Kyle Shanahan.
There's almost two conversations here. It's if the Chicago Bears are really good, what is that role going to look like for DJ Moore? And I think it's what you just outlined, where it is Deebo Samuel-ish, where he can get some backfield touches, some carries, some legit stuff coming out of the backfield, all that. I mean, last year he had nearly 100 receptions, but so much of that was screens because literally nothing else could work. We know that Ben Johnson does manufacture some stuff, but that's not going to be a staple of their offense each and every week. So that's one facet. The other facet is, like you said, by beat writer reports, maybe a frustrating, struggling offense at times so far this preseason. And how does he fit into that? Well, then if the offense just isn't as successful as we want it to be, then everyone gets knocked down a little bit. The other part is, too, they just drafted a dude in the second round in Luther Burden, who is a magician with the ball in his hands. Look, I try to throw out film and data for you guys on every single episode to back up my opinions. But sometimes it's just a gut feeling that you have that something is up. And I don't have a great feeling about DJ Moore's long-term future with the Chicago Bears right now, like beyond 2025. And so we could even see a hot start and maybe it fizzles out towards the middle and end of the season, and then he's gone to another team. So look, DJ Moore has had great seasons in the past, but I am just so much more willing to take a bunch of shots on these, to me, clearer pictures at wide receiver over him as wide receiver 21 at this moment.
Yeah, Caleb's got to get better, and he's got to prevent Rome Odunze and Colson Loveland for being like absolute beast. And like you said, with Luther Burden, who I think could also do some Deebo Samuel-ish type of stuff as well. So yeah, it's a line I don't want to thread at his price tag. I still think he's going to be a wide receiver 3 flex play. I'm not expecting a full-blown bust here, but I would not be drafting him in the 3rd, 4th round, which sometimes that's where he goes.
So some wide receivers in home leagues that are drafted after him include Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, Cortland Sutton, George Pickens, Jalen Waddle, Jameson Williams, Calvin Ridley, the rookies that we just talked about, and Tetairoa McMillan and Travis Hunter. So just to name a few. That's wide receiver 21 is super rich for DJ Moore at this moment when you consider him. Like, I'm just flat out ranking Rome Odunze ahead of DJ Moore right now too, by the way.
Yeah, I have it pretty close. I think like of those names, like Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, George Pickens, like to me, the upside case is like so evident. And I just think that their floors are going to be a little bit healthier, at least Rashee Rice's own case. But I think that George Pickens and Xavier Worthy are going to be awesome this year.
That's going to do it. We'll do an episode on running backs tomorrow. So if you enjoyed this one, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And the best way you can prepare for your home league drafts is to draft over on Underdog. Use promo code The Show. Click the link in the description. It is best ball. All that you do is draft. So it's not just one team that you have. You can do 5, 10, 15, however many that you want. Again, it's really good to figure out the pockets of wide receivers you want to pick from, or the pockets of running backs. And if you prefer to take a quarterback in round 3 or round 4 instead, go. If you've never done it, play best ball on Underdog. Again, use promo code The Show. We'll throw some bonus credits in your direction. All right, that does it. Talk to you guys tomorrow. See ya.